Hello and welcome to Santos on Sports. As usual, alongside Chris Santos, I am Paul Santos. We have a very special guest today. You know him from coming on in between periods and breaking down all of the tape there in those Bruins telecasts. Welcome to our show, Mr. Billy Jaffe. Billy, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. Nice to be on with the Santos and Santos.
Yeah, very easy to remember the names.
Should
I
be.
wanted to start before we get into the Bruins in depth about your career. Playing hockey, of course, Michigan, that silver medal that you got as captain of the USA team. How did you end up going from playing to not only being an analyst and a broadcaster, but eventually in Boston for NESN?
I don't know if we have enough time, so I'll really give you the shortest version possible. I fell ass backwards into broadcasting. I was given an opportunity at 28 years old to do the Blackhawks radio. They needed somebody to take over for Darren Pang, who was heading to ESPN at the time, full time. It was 1997. And I said, sure. I'd never done it except maybe putting on a headset when I was at Michigan once in a while, right? That was about it. And, I did it and I loved it right away. A lot of opportunities happened quickly, which was wonderful. It became very enticing to try and do it full time, although I had no idea what that meant. And I did. I went into it full time in my second year with the whopping grand total of $24,600 guaranteed to me if I didn't miss any Blackhawks games. So I bartended in addition. But I had the best time, 29, 30. What the heck? No, not married, no kids, nothing. So anyways, back to a very short story. I bounced to a couple of places and had wonderful experiences doing local and national work. And then after 2011, I covered the Eastern Final and the Stanley Cup for NHL Network. And I had a contract that wasn't renewed at Versus at the time because they had merged with NBC Sports. And so NBC Sports brought all their own people over, including one Mike Milbury. And by bringing Milbury over, that meant that Mike couldn't do NESN Bruins anymore. So I said to acquaintance that I knew had worked with before at the NHL Network, who had brought me in there, who was now at NESN, his name's Eric Haugen. I said, you mind if we talk? One thing led to another. I said, look, I can be I know I'm not a former Bruin, but I could be your national type guy, kind of like, I know Milbury was a former Bruin, but he was also a national guy. And one thing led to another, and the rest is history. I think it is. Yeah. So now this is my 10th year now doing NESN.
Hi, that's great, Billy. Glad to have you on. Unfamiliar territory this year with the Bruins. Probably the topic of conversation has been the goaltending situation. I'm sure you know all about that. Give us your thoughts. Not solidifying a number one goalie all season long. Allmark's been great. Swayman's been great. Shutout last night for him. Swayman gets the 7th man award. At the same time, Swayman gets the start tonight. If it's you, Billy, how do you see this goaltending situation panning out coming playoffs? Do you start Allmark? Do you start Swayman? Or do you go game by game and see how the flow of the game goes?
I don't think it's a question right now that Linus Ullmark is your starting goaltender. That's not a bad thing for Jeremy Swayman. That doesn't mean that Jeremy won't get in. But just the way that Linus has played the last 10 games, where what I would call, when I say real hockey, that doesn't mean what happened before wasn't. But now you're focused, your stretch run, it's the month of April, and you can tell there's been a real trajectory into Linus's game as he's gotten more and more comfortable. And coming from Buffalo, signing the big contract, you can never look past the impact signing a big contract with expectations carries on a player, whether or not they overtly even recognize it. And Linus is a very mellow dude, and I really haven't a chance to sit down and ever talk to him. That's still the crappy part of the whole, COVID situation. You get to really know the players like we used to be able to. But you can just say that, your guy played his career in Buffalo for 5 years. Now he comes to Boston, different expectations, different money, etc. But now he looks to me like he is a Boston Bruin. Before it was trying to figure out, okay, what am I? I know I'm a goalie, but now he's a Boston Bruin. He's comfortable. His game is much quieter. Swayman has been outstanding at times, and I know there was a lot of chatter about, well, maybe Eric Haula should have won the seventh man, and this, and Haula would have been a good choice, by the way, in my book too. But you know what? Swayman, 23 wins as a rookie goalie. Full first year in the NHL. I mean, really full year, a normal year. It's pretty damn good. And he's being able to learn a lot, and he's being able to learn the right way. And, if you had to just throw him into the fire, without a guy like Linus, and I'm not talking about keeping Vladar. I was never in favor for doing that. But, it would have been tougher. So I look at it this way, fellas. You go with Linus Ullmark. He's older. Yes, he hasn't played in playoff experience in the NHL Stanley Cup, but he's played in other leagues, and he played 55 games once in the American League. Mm-hmm. And his play, the optics says right now he's your guy. Doesn't mean I'm not against going back to Swayman after a game if it's rocky, but I don't think you just bounce right back to Jeremy Swayman, back one in, one off. Because lately it's been 2 to 3 for Linus. I know he got hurt for a couple, but you know what I mean. 2 or 3 yep. Linus, 1 Jeremy. I think that's where you go. Playoffs, if Linus doesn't give you a reason to take him out, you ride that horse.
It's funny because things have changed a lot. A lot of people might have said the opposite if you go back maybe a month, but yep. the way Ullmark has been playing, a lot of people.
But that's the lesson. That's the lesson right there. We want to, we're an immediate society, right? Sorry to interrupt you. No. I mean, but yeah. Everybody was so quick to judge Linus Ullmark. I mean, I did yes. interview after interview on radio for about 3 months. I do every Wednesday on the hub, and it was like, holy smokes, guys! That was stupid. I mean, funny they haven't said anything about it lately. I got to go give them crap about that next week. Thank you.
One of our viewers, Chris DuPont, thank you for watching. He agrees with Billy Jaffe, so you got somebody that's right in your corner there, Billy. Now I want to talk a little bit about Bruce Cassidy. I got to tell you, I always love watching the post-game press conferences, but Bruce Cassidy, he really gives you a lot. He's not afraid to call out players. And I was watching an interview with Mike Milbury, and he was totally against it. He was ripping, Cassidy for doing that. Like when he said, one of the players was fumbling with the puck at the blue line, and he should have passed it, and they stole it, and they went down and scored. And now he could have used a save there, and, stuff like that. So what do you think about that? I mean, is Bruce Cassidy a little bit too direct? Do you agree with Mike Milbury, or do you kind of like that style where, you're really getting a lot out of him in those post-game press conferences? He kind of tells it like it is, or what he's really feeling.
Well, again, Bruce doesn't tell us, or you, meaning the list, anything that he hasn't told or will tell the players. Mm-hmm. Everybody has different style. I respect that everybody has a different opinion and, again, a different style. That's there's an older school mentality about, everything stays in the room. And then we're seeing a difference in coaching, not acumen, but coaching appearance in post-game press conference. You get guys like Bruce, you get guys like John Cooper. You're getting different. You're getting more and more from guys as players get treated differently and expectations are different. I'm sure it can perturb maybe a guy here or there. I'm guessing. But I don't know. I mean, this isn't new. You know what I mean? I mean, Butch has done this for years, fellas. So I guess from a media standpoint, I'm pretty damn okay with it because it's, it gives us stuff. Is there maybe fence mending once in a while? Maybe. But, again, behind closed doors, I don't know. But I always go back to it. I mean, in the past, I've asked Bruce questions in the past and simple things, nothing salacious, nothing. And I'll say, and he says, hey, you know what? I haven't talked to the players yet, so I can't give you an answer. Well, I respect the hell out of that. Yep. I do. So that's where I'm at. But, I know Mike was players loved playing for Mike, but I do think it was I think it's I guess it's a personal preference style. And it's an old school versus a newer school type style.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, Billy. Right on with that. And the same situation with the Jake DeBrusk issue. Have you ever seen anything like that on a player where you start the season, let's say third or fourth line, then you're thinking about, well, maybe I want to be traded. Then the trade deadline goes by and you don't move. And the next thing you know, you get pushed up on the first line with Marsh and Bergeron, and you've had an outstanding 2 months. I mean, how you handle that internally as well as with the other players, and it worked out okay for him. How do you think? Have you seen that before in the NHL?
Well, don't forget, he signed a $8 million contract. 2 years at four each. Yeah, that little nugget, right? Have I ever seen it? Well, you got to remember that, Vlad Tarasenko of St. Louis was pretty overt about his interest in getting traded out of St. Louis before the season, guys.
Yeah,
he was pretty adamant about it.
Yep.
He changed agents, did Vladimir, and again, it was public, but they couldn't make a trade for him, and therefore it was, carry on. And he's been more than a good soldier there. He's a pretty damn good player too, right?
Oh, I mean,
he's so. I mean, for us publicly seeing what Jake's gone through, and mind you, I don't feel sorry for Jake at all. And this is a business. And I don't blame Jake if he wants to get traded. This is a business. And by the way, he asked for a trade. Over the summer, I think it was. Sorry, my dog just came in the front door, so he's now in my lap over here. Hello, Cooper. Okay. We're live on air, Cooper. Come here, buddy. Jake had a decision to make, and that's what all the players in the room, said, hey, listen, man, this is your it's 23 independent contractors. That's what a team is in professional hockey. Yeah. And you want to be the best team possible. You need to be the best team possible. However, you are your own entity. It's just a business, flat out. You have to get, I know some fans might not love, all for one for all mentality. Yes, there is an element of that. And the best teams are the ones that end up winning more, but you're still your own independent contractor when it's all said and done, because it's a very finite business. So Jake had to make a choice. He's handled it. I think, pretty well. I mean, at first you could tell that he was uncomfortable, unhappy. He wasn't talking with the media. Okay, fine. I would have loved to have heard from him. But you know what? He got through the trade deadline. Maybe the contract gave him, whether it was hope to get traded, or at least he knew that he was going to have $8 million more coming the next 2 years, no matter where he was playing. I do think the Bruins tried to trade him. I do. I don't think they got an offer that they felt was anywhere near adequate. So then I don't think they said to satiate his appetite of, playing good hockey, hey, you're going to play with these guys. Will that be okay? It was, hey, this is an opportunity now. Go do it. And all by playing well, all that does is increase his trade value come off season.
Yes,
that's all
absolutely.
It does.
Yep.
It's great to see a smile on his face. It's awesome to see the sellies and the fist pumps. And I'm thrilled for the kicks. I happen to like him a ton. I do. I'm thrilled for him. Now, how does it work out business-wise? I don't know. Playoffs will be a very telling, scenario, I think, for a player like him. I do. I think it will be an interesting, situation for him. My guess is, without knowing anything really, my guess is that there's still a good chance that he would get traded come off season.
Well, speaking of the playoffs, I'm looking at the Bruins and I'm looking at the other teams out there, and I'm thinking, well, there's a lot of teams as good, maybe even better than the Bruins, but the Bruins are as good as a lot of teams as well. They certainly can compete with anybody, assuming they get the goaltending, which of course you always need in the playoffs. Offensively, they can put the puck in the net. They might even go 2-3 lines deep. But analysts always seem to say that defense is a little suspect. Once you get past McAvoy, Lindholm, and Carlo, after that, it's a little shaky. And when you're playing teams that can also put the puck in the net, that could be a problem. What do you think about the Bruins defense? Do you think it's good enough for this team to get all the way down to the end and have a shot for the cup?
Well, I do think that the second pair of, assuming it's Carlo and Grzelcyk, and the third line, the Coyle line, will have a significant input as to how well this team does in the playoffs. I do. We saw a little bit in Thursday's game of Carlo and Lindholm, McAvoy and Forbert, and then Grzelcyk and Clifton. And I'm going to be curious come playoff time how much we see that or if it, to use Bruce's term, toggle, he loves to use the term toggle. If he toggles those guys just intermittently, and those guys in particular are McAvoy and Lindholm, if they're each 20, I'll call them 26 to 28 minute guys in playoffs in regulation. They're 25 in regular season. So bump that 1 to 3 minutes. If you play them 26 to 28 minutes, are you, for a third of that extra time, bumping them with another guy to get them on the ice? So you're almost always having one of the two of them on the ice. I could see that happening. I think it's going to be the Bruins defense. And look, I know you can look at the D crew, but it's also about team defense. If their layers are there and the defense handles the pressure. Look, they're going to play, no matter if they play Carolina or Toronto, it's going to be about handling transitional pressure. It's going to be for these guys. If they can handle it, and if Carlo and Grizzly cannot have sustained times in their own zone and avoid getting run into the boards, we've seen that happen in each of the last couple of playoffs. Then I think they'll be okay. Then I do think. But otherwise, I think it will be a challenge for this team. I do. They cannot get, if they can handle pressure, teams are going to flip pucks in, flip them out, that type of thing. I think if they can handle that, then they're okay because they have the depth. It's a big question, though. We have to see it come playoff time. Now, they've won rounds before with a lot of these D. They've never had two big-time horses, in McAvoy and Lindholm. We have never seen them in the playoffs like this. So that to me becomes kind of a lame ass answer here. Sorry, fellas, but a little unknown right here. Meaning, no question, the depth is, you look at it, but having these two thoroughbreds back there could hopefully change some of the discussion that we're having.
Billy, you've seen the other 7 teams that are in the playoffs. 2 questions. The first one is, does the Stanley Cup still go through Tampa? Number 2, we've seen the Bruins beat these teams, and then we've seen these Bruins look awful against these teams. Is this a thing where the Bruins can handle a series more than just a one game? Can they handle the series? And does the Cup still go through Tampa in your eyes?
I would say that the Cup has a good potential to still go through Tampa because they do have the best goalie in the world right now.
Yep.
I know he's been off a little bit at times, but maybe, we have such high expectations out of him because we've seen it. And they still have one of the top 3 defensemen in the world in Victor Hedman. And, the question for me is, can guys like Hagel and Nick Paul, guys that they brought in, can they bring that mid-depth to this team? Can they play to that same level? The Lightning, interesting enough, aren't the fastest team in the world. They're not. They have good speed, but they're not the fastest team, but they're very smart, nice structure, but they're very, hockey, like when they're supporting each other, their hockey structure, their hockey, what's the word I'm looking for? Ability. How's that? Is just basic analysis. It's awesome. It really is. They've a lot of creative guys, a lot of scares that can scare the bejesus out of you with the puck, without the puck, and they've experienced. Now, they played a ton of hockey. So in a short period of time, I know it was a shorter season last year and the whole bubble thing, but it's still been a huge amount of hockey in a very short period of time. Let's see if that wears on them or not. But I would say I think it's a good chance it still goes through them. The other question about the Bruins, if I have a concern about the Bruins, is that they're an injury. I don't think, some teams are 2 or 3 injuries away from being, oh no, right? Like that's I don't know if they're that. I think they're an injury away from it, meaning, they have Mike Riley on the back end, and then they have Josh Brown. So, okay, I think they can handle 1 on the back end. I do, regularly. I don't think they can handle 2 back there.
Right.
And then up front, I've liked McLaughlin a lot, a real lot. I give the kid a ton of props for coming in and showing some gumption, right? And then they've got Bleed. After that, it's a mixture of Steen. Do you call up Chris Wagner then because of his experience? My point is, I don't know. My point is, they're not many injuries away. They're 1 or 2 injuries away from, I think, being a questionable, can you win a series team?
Right.
All right, before we let you go, Billy, preparing for those in-between segments, is this a situation where you'll tell a producer, hey, these guys are doing some puck watching over here, or maybe the forecheck cost us a goal, and you tell them, hey, can you grab that clip for me because I want to talk about this? Is that how it works, or how does it work?
So it's very scientific. We say, mark that, mark breakout, mark the neutral zone, mark this. And constant communication with the producer and the EVS guy, or the guy basically doing the cutting of the tape, the video in the studio. When we're at TD Garden, we have earpieces and, microphone to connect with them back in Watertown. So what ends up happening is by about the 5 or 4 minute mark at the end of the period, we then will say, okay, we have this amount of time. Let's do this, this, and this. And then second segment, let's do this and this. And, and we talk about it a little bit, and that's it. I mean, it's usually very, I don't say cut and dried because it isn't, but it's a discussion / this, we look at what was the story of the period. Now,
yeah,
the thing that I have emphasized, and at least I hope it comes through, we have emphasized as a network team, broadcast team, is to not just, you have to talk about what you see, but find not just the obvious. Yes, of course, you got to show goals, and you've got to, but go into certain things that maybe the fan at home hasn't seen as much, that we say could have an impact, did have an impact, or could have to foreshadow, could have an impact coming up. It's a lot of, sometimes it's, you just say, hey, this is what happened, and give us your take on it. And that's what we do. Other times we try to get in. I love getting into the minutia of things, but sometimes it can be too much. And you got to remember that, sometimes there's people at home that maybe don't get it as much, or they want to just talk about other things. So it's a wonderful jigsaw puzzle that we put together, and we try and build a story. And we do try and look ahead a little bit to have impact on the game. And then, by the end of the game, we hopefully have analyzed it to your guys and everybody else's liking, which isn't always possible, but that's life.
Well, we really appreciate you taking a few minutes out to chat with us here on Santos on Sports. Let's hope that we're still talking about the Bruins in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Well, let's one
game at a time.
Business long enough now. Let's get to the first round. That's the old cliche, game by game. The East is gonna be brutal.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be brutal. I know it's cliche, but there's gonna be 4 teams that all are gonna say when they're out, we were better. We thought we were gonna do well, and you know what? This year, I think it's legit. I do. I think it's teams that all think that they could go 2-3 rounds. Once you get past that second round, now it's just like, all right, let's go at it. But anyways, it'll be fun. I appreciate you guys having me on, and continued success with your show.
Thank you very much
again. All the best.
You got it.
All right, Billy Jaffee from NESN, our special guest here on Santos on Sports. We appreciate him taking time out. Now we're going to switch to you at 774-762-6234. Wow, some great insight there from Billy Jaffee about the Bruins. And, of course, his job is to break down the tape and talk about the team. Had some interesting things to say about the Bruins. I think we've talked about it. They can't afford any injuries like some of these other teams can. One guy out, 2 guys out, they're done.
Yeah, and he talked about the guys that would come in on the defensive side, and he talked about a couple of guys that would come in on the offensive side if somebody goes out. So if that happens, that's going to be a big change for the Bruins. So they got to stay healthy, and he thinks probably if they have their full team, they will be just fine. So we talked about goaltending. We talked about the brusque. We talked about the defensive end. We talked about what he thought in the Stanley Cup playoffs and how that goes. If you agree to disagree, or even with us, give us a call, 774-762-6234. Let us know what you thought of Billy Jaffee. Let us know what your thoughts are on the Bruins coming up. They still got a game tonight. Swayman's in net. They got the Toronto Maple Leafs. who are playing well. They got a 60-goal scorer in Austin Matthews. And some, as he said, a very tough Eastern Conference with 7 other teams that he's right. If you're going to lose first round, 4 teams are going to scratch their head and say, boy, we were really good in the regular season. How come we didn't go further? So, from Tampa to Florida to Carolina, the Rangers, Toronto, the Bruins, Washington, and Pittsburgh, it's a good 8, Paul. Expect some great playoff hockey coming up starting next week.
All right. Shout out to Steve Souza. Thanks for watching here. Again, Santos on Sports. Give us a call. Make some comments. Chris and I were so interested in asking him about the goaltending, right? Because Chris and I have been talking about it. You, the viewers, have been talking about it. We have some Swayman fans out there. I mean, there was a time where it felt like Swayman was your number one, no question. But then, Ullmark kind of rallied. He started playing better. But then, Swayman went to a little bit of a slump, but then he kind of rallied. So the last few weeks, it's been, they both have been playing, pretty similar. Maybe you give a little extra to Ullmark. But boy, I'll tell you, Billy Jaffe, he was hard in favor of Ullmark, which, like I said, is probably different than it was a month ago. And he even said, hey, fans are like, what did you do for me last night? They're not thinking about the long haul. And he gave a really good answer about how, he thought Ullmark should be the guy. And he gave his reasons. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and let's not forget, halfway through the season, Tuukka Rask coming back, how that would have been if he decided he was healthy and he didn't retire. So that would weigh a lot on Swayman and weigh a lot on Ullmark with Tuukka coming back. So a lot of things had to go back to regrouping and getting back to the norm of, okay, now we only have Ullmark and Swayman. And I think they both handled it very well.
Absolutely. And it was a kind of a tough situation coming down the stretch. And then, of course, you talked about that defense. I've heard so many analysts say the defense is suspect once you get past the top 3 guys. But then he said what you said a few weeks ago. You can really ride those first 2 guys if you can get 25 to 28 minutes out of them and even throw them out there with a different pairing at times in crucial moments. As long as they don't get hurt, the Bruins can operate in that fashion and still have success.
Yeah, and you can look at from every team, from Victor Hedman. You can take whatever Giordano from the Maple Leafs, who they got in the trade, John Carlson for Washington, Letang from Pittsburgh. Those are your horsemen. Those are the guys from 28 to 32 minutes, and we're just going to ride them and keep playing them as much as when Ray Bourque played for the Bruins, who looked like he never came off the ice. Those are the guys you look to. Those are the guys you want to see. They have 2 of them by getting Lindholm. Hopefully he's healthy, as Billy said and alluded to. Got to have him for a good chunk of time. Keep him on the ice, whether it's with McAvoy or if it's not, with somebody else, and keep good 4 guys, 2 pairings for the Bruins to really succeed in this playoffs.
All right, let's go to the phones. Good afternoon. You are on Santos on Sports.
Good afternoon. What a fantastic guest, huh?
Fantastic, right. Really enjoyed speaking with him.
Wow, he had some great information, and I love the way he articulated, explained some of the stuff. I thought that, the way we talk about it, not meaning on your show, but, guys getting together, we talk about the defenseman coughing the puck up and turning it over, and he said it perfect. I think the defense is really will they be able to withstand, because their teams are going to come out, dump the puck, and go get it. And our guys can't. They can't cough it up. That's what they do now. They turn the puck over on our own end, and that's when a lot of the goals happen, and where we lose some games. But boy, what a great guest! I really like the way he articulated and explained some of this. That was fantastic.
Yeah, and he talked about withstanding the pressure from the forwards of the other team. That's the key right there. It's a good defenseman is usually not going to turn the puck over when there's no one on them. It's when it's dump and chase. Now you turn and get it. Here comes the pressure. You know you're going to get whacked. You know you're going to get in the boards, and you flip it up and you turn it over. Or now you corral, get it from your defensive partner. Someone's there. You make the bad pass. So watch that in the playoffs. The pressure from the other teams. Are they able to withstand that? I thought he said that and analyzed that perfectly.
I agree. I thought he did too. He nailed it. And I think that's exactly what these opponents are going to do.
Yep.
they're going to put the pressure on those guys. You know, McAvoy and Lindholm, they're fine. They're going to hit the outlet, or they're going to protect the puck even if they get caught up in some body contact. They'll protect the puck and they don't really, turn it over into the slot or somewhere in front. It's the younger guys that kind of panic, and I hate to use that word, but they kind of panic and they throw the thing out there, and that's when it all goes bad. But what a great guess. You guys did a great job getting them.
Yes, thank you. And, I wanted to ask you, we were particularly interested in the goaltending question and how he came out hard in favor of Ullmark. What'd you think of that?
Yeah, I'm with him. I think, to take a little page out of Bill Belichick's book, whatever is, best for the team. I know there might be some, people may have a little bad feeling about it, maybe disappointment, maybe the better word. And I hope it doesn't affect them career-wise or in the future going forward, or even in the playoffs. He's going to get a chance in the playoffs. He's going to be able to play, but I hope Swayman understands, hey, we got to go with the better guy right now. We really do. And I think it's been Omar, to be honest with you. I think, neither one has standed on their head, but, I think he controls rebounds better at this point. And, he's made some of the harder, a couple more spectacular saves that Swayman's been able to get in front of. So I think to start the playoffs, and I think the team, may play, and I don't want to say they'll play harder, but I think they'll be a little bit more comfortable with him in there.
Paul, I thought it was interesting that Billy said about the contract, the high contract of Ullmark maybe gives him a little bit more advantage. You've paid this much money to go get this guy, and, you want to use him for what you gave him. So remember that. The contract was big as well.
Yeah, I that was another point that we seem to forget as fans, meaning me, not so much you guys, but the business part of it was very well articulated, and actually, I raised my eyebrows listening to it, going, I really never thought of it that way. Individual contract people, and it's, the coach has to get them together. It was, the business aspect of it. We seem to, we don't think about that a lot.
I got to ask you a question before we let you go. You alluded to Bill Belichick a few moments ago. And since you brought up Bill Belichick, right, he is just being ripped for this first round pick that the Patriots made. I know you're a Bill guy. What do you think? What's going on over there?
I am. And when I saw, who they picked, I said, boy, talk radio, their heads are going to explode on this. and it did. But I'll tell you, I listened to a couple of guys today, and I'm usually not a fan of some of the guys I listened to today, but a couple of them came around and said, it is Bill Belichick, and they do need some offensive linemen, and there is a reason, there could have been other teams ahead of the Patriots that were looking to draft this guy. I mean, I still say he's the best coach in the world, and until he's not, he still is. And for, it doesn't make for good talk radio, but and Bill we trust. And, I trust the guy. He's brought us a lot of happiness, a lot of wins. He just don't fall off the cliff like this. There is a method to his madness, and if it all pans out, it'll all be fine.
All right.
But he is certainly subject.
All right, let's get Chris's thoughts on that. We really appreciate the call, and we'll speak to you again soon.
All right, fellas, good job.
All right, thank you very much. All right, on Bill Belichick's pick, what does the X's and O's guys think here on Santos on Sports?
Well, of course, everybody's first thought is, you're getting a guy from a lesser division. You're getting a guy who experts, according to them, say he's maybe a late second to early third round. Why did you go get him so early? That kind of situation. I think that's what the main topic is. But, you don't know the ins and outs of what the Patriots see in this guy. We don't know the ins and outs of what they might be able to do with him to help him really be the starting guard or wherever he's going to go to help this team. So, yeah, it's a long shot. And sometimes Bill likes to take those, those chances to say, like, hey, listen, I got a guy that you don't know about, and I got him, and you didn't get him. And so I'm happy that I did.
He likes that.
There's that situation too. And it's a little bit of, raising the shoulders like, I got the guy I wanted. So it'll be interesting to see. But I know there's a lot of people who are not happy at the same time. But, that caller liked in Bill we trust. And there's a lot others who will say, no way they should have done this. But it is what it is. And so, they're going to make the best of it. Round 2, round 3 coming up. They got a lot more picks. So let's see how the rest of the draft pans out. But, yeah, I think there was some players there, Paul, that might have been a little bit different from Georgia, from Florida State, some bigger schools, Lindenbaum, a couple other guys maybe that if they were there might be able to take as well. So, Bill's going to take some heat for this one. Let's see how the kid develops, and let's see if this is their starting guard filling in for Shaq Mason come this year.
Well, I was trying to think to myself after I heard just about everybody rip Bill this morning on the radio, both nationally and in the Boston area. Thought to myself, okay, I'm a lawyer, right? That's one side of the story. Let me try to think about the other side of the story, right? Well, people might say, well, Mac Jones needs more people to throw to. We do have some people that they paid that, hopefully will come around this year, whether it's, Bourne or Smith or whatever, have another good year along with Hunter Henry. So you got to be able to throw the ball. But, if you don't have pass protection, you can't throw the ball, right? So even Patrick Mahomes, who's considered one of the best quarterbacks in the league, you saw what happened to him in that Super Bowl against Tom Brady when they had all those injuries to the offensive line. He was running for his life. He couldn't throw the ball from here to there because he didn't have any protection. You can't run the ball if you don't have any, offensive line work. So a lot of times, like, that last caller was saying, we, the fan, we look at it differently. We're not looking at, like X's and O's, like what you need in order to be successful. So if this guy pans out, hey, the quarterback needs protection and you need people to block so you can run the ball. So, whether he picked the right offensive lineman out of the ones that are out there, that's open to question. But, everybody wants the sexy wide receiver that runs 100 miles an hour. But again, if you don't have somebody protecting the quarterback, it doesn't matter what the wide receiver does.
Well, I have no problem with the position in where they picked and the position of being an offensive lineman as their choice. That's not the problem because there are holes to fill, and one of them is the offensive line for the New England Patriots. So going to get an offensive lineman, that's not the problem. The problem is the player, where he comes from, Division II school, and obviously back in the draft, maybe late second, early third, compared to maybe some other offensive linemen from bigger schools who they think late first round, early second round, that they could have got. So I think that's where the discrepancy is in the fans and in the media of how they did it.
All right, 774-762-6234. You can pick up on the Bruins. Great guest today, Billy Jaffe.
That was great.
And we just wanted to quickly mention about the Patriots draft last night. I got to tell you, Chris, as the season was winding down last year, people like to talk about, hey, we need a fast wide receiver and we need more people for, the quarterback, Mac Jones to throw to and all that. But really, and I've mentioned this over and over again, the reason why the Patriots were bad down the stretch was because of the defense. The offense put up enough points to win. The Patriots won a Super Bowl 13-3, I think, a couple of years ago, right? Or was it 17-3, something like that. They've won Super Bowls with, putting up offensive numbers in the teens. The defense, 2 games in a row, didn't force a punt. Now, the first time that happened was the first time in Bill Belichick's career that it ever happened. And then it happened again. So 2 games in a row, you couldn't stop anybody. So I was hoping, hey, a quick edge guy, a really fast linebacker, because the criticism has been that the defense is slow and old. Well, we can definitely make them young and fast if we can grab a couple of guys in this draft. So that's what I was hoping for. Obviously, the offensive line as a whole needs to be plugged too. But I was really looking forward to like somebody that could help Judon and Barnmore. up front, put some pressure on Josh Allen and some of these other people.
Yeah,
you know,
and two names come to mind was FSU defensive end Johnson and Purdue defensive end. I think it was Carafellis or
Right.
Carafellis, whatever his name is, and they both went after New England's pick. So that was two guys on the defensive side, edge rushes that they could have had a shot and go out and get. Now, not saying they're going to get maybe some edge rushes coming up, and they thought maybe, okay, the value now is better for us compared to we really need an offensive lineman. And so that's where it comes back to the adage of, yeah, but who is this guy? And where did he come from? And how come the experts don't really know his name as a first round pick? You know, that's the difference. And so when you don't see it like that, that's where it makes it tough. And, my team did the same thing. They picked an offensive lineman from Tulsa, and it was the same situation. Where did this guy come from? And why are we grabbing him now? Is he that much where other teams are going to say, "Whoa, well, the Cowboys let him go. It's our turn to go get him." And the same thing with the Patriots. So, I don't really know what the other teams are thinking, but you saw some of the experts. We even saw some of the other teams kind of joking and laughing about the Patriots and Bill's decision to go out and get this guy at that pick. That's interesting. When they thought they had on their board, this guy would be later on in the draft. So interesting what other teams are thinking about Bill's selection.
I think you touched on a point there. I think in the past, Bill does kind of like this thing where, oh yeah, I know this guy in Division II and you don't know him, but because I'm Bill Belichick and I've been around and I know stuff, I don't know. It seems like he gets off on that stuff, but why do that? I mean, you could get away with that when Tom Brady was there, but why are you doing that now when we're trying to, struggle to, get back in the playoffs? And I got to tell you, the Jets had a great draft. So now you got to deal with, the Jets are kind of creeping up behind you. Buffalo is getting stronger all the time. The Miami Dolphins, you're 0-2 against them last year. I mean, this isn't your mother's AFC East.
No, and I thought the Jets, the Giants, and even the Eagles, and unfortunately those two teams are in my division, had a great draft. And whether it was picking up guys in the draft, getting a trade like getting A.J. Brown from Tennessee, now with Philadelphia, and I'm like, oh boy. And it's things like that, Paul, that if the Eagles can do it, then why can't other teams do it? Or trade up to say, hey, I want to go get this safety, or hey, I want this edge rusher. So there's a lot of ways, and there's a lot of, times talking with your staff to figure out, hey, can we get away with this? Can we do this? If we give up this, and this, will that take away from what we need later on? There's a lot of stuff that we don't know about that happens. And that's why those guys, get paid the big bucks to do their coaching and drafting. And Bill, Bill's Bill. He makes those decisions. But I just think he decides to get guys from schools. Like he would go out and get guys from Rutgers and some of these other schools, and there's something about this guy that he's my type of player. So, that's the way he's done it since he's been coaching, and he continues to do it.
Again, our thanks to Billy Jaffe of Nesson for coming on and speaking with us at the beginning of today's show. An excellent interview, a lot of insight on the Bruins as we go into the playoffs. If you have any thoughts about the Bruins, give us a shout in the remaining 15 minutes or so at 774-762-6234. And you can chat with Chris and I. You can also talk about the draft last night. We did want to touch on the Celtics real quickly. We haven't been on since that sweep. Wow, what an unbelievable performance by the Celtics. I mean, these young players seem to be maturing at the right time. There was some talk that maybe the Nets were the best team in the whole East. Now what do you got left? You got Philadelphia, you got Miami. Obviously, you got to get through Giannis and Milwaukee, so it's going to be a tough series coming up, no question about it. But, hey, the Celtics are as good as just about everybody that's left over, don't you think?
I thought they looked like a great team, Paul. And I thought Brooklyn looked like a bunch of individuals. That's just my personal thought. And the Celtics really gelled and mended on both sides of the ball, both offensively, moving it around, getting a lot of people involved with Tice, Horford, Brown, Smart, Tatum, the whole kit and caboodle. And defense, excellent. Swarming Durant, knew that he was going to be the bulk of the offense. really got on top of him. Yeah, there was some times that I thought they could have done it a little bit better. First two games, giving up 60 points in that first half. And I was like, oh boy, kind of really shut them down in the second half. And then in the third and the fourth game looked good. On the road doing it as well. So some smothering defense, just a really group effort. Yeah, Milwaukee's next. Just found out that one of their key players, though, Middleton, MCL sprain, will not play in the series. And I think that is really big for Milwaukee. Middleton's a Celtics killer. He's hurt them a lot during the regular season. And so not having him, I think that really helps Boston to get a lot more of that now pressure on Giannis, double teaming him as they did with Durant. And now Milwaukee's got to find something else. And Middleton's not there to help him.
Sometimes the sun, the moon, and the stars just kind of line up.
Yeah.
You know? The Celtics are coming into their own. These guys are now 24 years old. They've been on the team for a while. You know, they got Rob Williams back. That was big. You know, he wasn't out as long as they thought. He did contribute a little in the last game. You know, Tyson Horford have been playing great. You know, maybe that bulletin board stuff certainly lit up Horford because he was all over the place doing all kinds of stuff. But, yeah, the ball movement, everything coming together. And, you know, you mentioned Middleton being out. That's a break for the Celtics. How about the fact that the Celtics ended up with home advantage, you know, home court advantage, which is still, unlike the other sports, it's still big in basketball when you got home court. And, you know, to be able to have 4 out of those 7 games at the Garden, you know, if they can figure out a way to, you know, they get the best defense in the league. If you can stop Giannis and slow Giannis down, I like their chances.
Yeah, you know, it's either that or you let Giannis get what he gets and you stop everybody else. So there's a couple ways to do it. But I like the way Tatum played defense on Durant. Let's look for matchups. Will Tatum play on Giannis and do kind of the same thing? But think about what Tatum did with Durant and yet still was productive on the other side and offensively. So I'm going to be looking for matchups, see who the Celtics put on him to start, and then see how that flow goes. And then if he gets by the defender, who helps out, and look at all the other matchups along the way too. But, yeah, you're a 2 seed, and that's why you play in the regular season to get the home court advantage. They have it right now. It's in their favor. Let's see if they can use it. Get the Celtics crowd, get the energy in, obviously, the TD Bank. Keep that focus going on. Try to get 2 wins again. You're going to have some time before you play game number 1 to rest the body after playing Brooklyn and get yourself ready for Milwaukee and Giannis.
Well, one of the things you mentioned was, you know, Jason Tatum still being productive even though he was playing defense, and that's absolutely true. But there was one game in particular where his numbers were down, but he still had 10 assists. I was so critical of him earlier in his career when he would have games where he had 2 assists. You know, so the game where he wasn't scoring points, he was still helping the team tremendously by playing that kind of defense and moving the ball around and giving the ball to the open guy.
Absolutely. And again, it's a team. And Udoka said, we got a bunch of guys that know exactly what's going on right now. We are a good team. And that was the first thing that came out of his mouth. And you saw it with assists, ball passing, you know, finding the open man, getting to open spots, working together really well, transition basketball, off the turnovers, not selfish play, finding the lead man, executing, and sweeping Brooklyn. I mean, would you think that going in, you're going to sweep Brooklyn? I know I didn't.
Absolutely not. All right, well, you know, we started with the Bruins and Billy Jaffee. Maybe we could close with that. We'll talk about anything you want, of course. If you want to give us a call, you see the number there. But I want to get back to Billy Jaffee in our closing moments because, first of all, he was a tremendous guest. We really enjoyed talking to him. You know, whatever question we asked, he hit it out of the park.
Right on it.
Anything in particular that surprised you? I mean, I think the Olmark thing did. I wasn't sure what he was going to say. I thought he was going to say maybe you start one and then you have a short leash or something. That's not what he said at all. He said that Olmark would have to be pretty bad before you would pull him. And he mentioned the contract, which I wasn't even thinking about the contract. I'm thinking, hey, well, I don't care if the guy's making $2. If he's playing better, put him in there. But, you know, again, it's a business. That's not necessarily how they look at it. So I think that surprised me a little bit. I don't know if there was anything else in particular that, you know, you thought, wow, that's a pretty interesting comment.
Well, you know, there's 7 other teams in the playoffs. And I thought he would mention maybe Carolina, maybe Florida. he still thinks the cup goes through Tampa when you got Vasilevsky, the best goaltender in the world, and Hedman as, one of the top 3 defensemen. And yet he also talked about they're not the speediest team, but they're the smartest team. And I thought that was very interesting how he put that together. And he also talked about the guys that they picked up to go with Stamkos, to go with Kucherov, the Pauls, the Palats, the other players that can help out and make them be the team to beat. So the athletic trainer, I'm sure, is smiling and grinning from ear to ear if he's watching Santos on sports and what Billy Jaffe had to say.
And by the way, he came on 2 years in a row because Tampa
Yes.
is the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion. And he said, hey, we'll make a date for next year if they win another cup. He's coming on again. So, and I'm sure I was just texting him the other day, and we're going back and forth. And, if they end up playing Tampa at some point, I'll make sure if I get to the garden, I'll knock on the glass and say, hey, what's up, Mulligan from New Bedford. So we'll see what happens there. But that experience, that cup experience, having won 2 years in a row. And I look at the goaltender Vasilevsky. I got to tell you, he's a great goalie. And the thing that I always say about how the goalies are so different now. You see Ken Dryden; he looks like a stick figure. They cover so much of the net. This man is so big, and he can move so fast. Even like great snipers, you think to yourself, where are you going to put the puck? There's no place to put the puck on this guy, And so if he has a really good game and he's hot, he can really frustrate your offense.
Oh, absolutely. And with Billy being our guest, I could have talked to him for the whole hour.
Oh, absolutely.
I could have went over the power play. They were 0 for 40, and they finally got going. What's that all about? I mean, we just could have kept going, and it was just so much fun to have him for the 20 minutes that we got out of him. But, very great insights. Even as our caller said, what was really impressed how he breaks it down. And he even broke our questions down and gave us his thoughts. Something that we didn't really think about, even like the thing on DeBrusk and what he probably had to go through and how he felt about him and some of the other players and contracts and, being traded and not, and how to handle other players. When you talked about Cassidy, calling some guys out, all the insights, just great knowledge of the NHL. And obviously about the Boston Bruins. It was a pleasure to have him on.
Well, you mentioned DeBrusk, and you asked him a great question about DeBrusk. And, of course, he knows all these players personally because he sees them all the time and talks to them. And from the fans' point of view, when he was on the third line, he was grumpy and he wanted to be traded and all that. I think the fans probably thought, this guy's a pain in the neck. He's probably, one of these guys that, you can't, he's grumpy and you can't get through to him and all that.
Yeah.
And it may be just the opposite. It may be that, hey, look, I feel like I'm a good player. It's not working out for me here. It's a business. I'm an independent contract, and maybe it'll work out better somewhere else. Not necessarily a contentious thing. It maybe got that way, but, that doesn't mean he's a bad individual or anything like that. It turns out Jaffee thinks he's a great guy. He's a great guy. And once they put him on that first line and everything clicked, hey, maybe he says he might still be traded, but I mean, if he's on the first line and he's scoring goals and they're making a run for the cup, maybe he'll be happy and he'll say, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll stay here for a while. But he had some interesting insight on that.
Yeah, he sure did. And then in the offseason, it's the contract and what other teams are willing to do. And as he said, he thinks they got some offers, but it didn't work out in the best for the Bruins. And so he remained there and said, okay, this is where you're at. Now go do your job and get it done. And we're putting you in that situation. And in the last 2 months, he's handled the situation and he's done a good job with Marchand and Bergeron.
I like that part of the beginning too, when he said how he got involved in broadcasting. He was playing hockey, and then he just kind of just fell into it, and he like filled in or something. And then once he got in there, he was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. I like this. And then, he started to learn the craft. It wasn't anything he went to school for or anything like that, but having the knowledge, having played the game, got in there, it started to do it and loved it immediately, which some guys do. Jerry Remy said the same thing, that he loved it right away. And then, of course, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And he also works at the NHL Network. So it's kind of funny how, things just kind of broke in his favor, and one thing led to another. Now he's relocated in Boston, and he's happy right there working for Netson.
Oh, boy, I wish we had that luck, Paul. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you never know.
You never know, right? Let's get the shot. Someone, hey, Santos on Sport, give us a call. We'll be analysts. I'll work with the NHL Network, and Paul can do play-by-play. Yeah, let's get something together. That would be fun.
I got the best X's and O's guy right here. It's fine. It works out great. Hey, our list of VIPs is adding up. We've got Billy Jaffe of Nesson, Peter Abraham of the Boston Globe, Andy Hart of WEEI, Tom E. Curran of NBC Sports Boston. So, hey, we appreciate it. We reach out. A lot of times they reach back, and we're very happy to tell them that we're, our show is, pretty much South Coast, New Bedford, Fall River. We got a lot of fans down here, and always saying sometimes Boston forgets about us down here. So, hey, most of the time they're very gracious. They're happy to come on and, give us a good 15, 20 minutes. They've got other commitments, of course, but really appreciate the fact that Billy Jaffe came on today. He was excellent.
Well, it was. And I talked to him earlier, and I'm sure as soon as he got off, he was changing and he was heading to get ready for the Bruins against the Maple Leafs tonight in their final regular season game. And the same thing with Tom Curran. Those guys are so busy, Paul. And to reach out to, like, let's say the little guy is awesome, because you see those guys all the time. And not everybody gets to see us, obviously. And so for them to come out and say, hey, yeah, I'm going to give you some time, go over some X's and O's, go over some questions. I just think it's great. And they're realizing that, hey, there's some nice shows and some nice people out there that want to talk sports. And I want to help them out along the way.
You're not only an X's and O's guy, you're turning into a producer.
Well, hey, we got some other people in mind too, Paul. So
yeah, right.
We're not done. We're not done yet. So hang in there. We got some other features, hopefully down the road. Maybe to do with the Red Sox. Maybe to do with the Patriots. Trying to get some people still on here, and keep our show and keep our fans happy. And I hope everybody enjoyed Billy Jaffe in today's show as well.
That's what producers do. They produce.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you very much for folks out there commenting and watching today, and our callers. And again, a big thanks to Billy Jaffe of Nesson. We'll be looking forward to see him break down some tape tonight in the final Bruins telecast and on into the playoffs. So for my partner, Chris Santos, I'm Paul Santos for Santos on Sports. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching.